Hey, Casting Call Entertainment, I'm Jason Earles. I play Jackson Stewart on Hannah Montana, and I am super excited to be here. Now, Lisa is probably the single most important person that I met when it comes to being cast in Hannah Montana. I actually met her a couple of months before my first audition for Hannah, auditioning for another movie that she was casting. And the audition went really well. I wasn't quite right for that part, which happens a lot in Hollywood. But she remembered me from the audition that I did before, and so when it came time to cast for Hannah Montana, she brought me in, and I was one of the very lucky people that didn't have to do the first audition. I came right into a producer's audition, and then had a really great read there, and then tested for the network about a week later, and then I booked Hannah Montana like 2 weeks after that. So for me, it was a very, very fast process, but it started meeting Lisa a couple of months beforehand on a completely different project. The casting director is responsible for collecting a pool of talent together and sort of pre-screening them to see who's right for different roles in a movie or TV show. So it's really up to their judgment to see who they're going to pass along to the producers or the writers or the directors or the network, who ultimately makes the decision on who's going to be cast in the show. So she is the sort of the first line of defense for the producers, and she is the gatekeeper to our dreams when it comes to getting acting work. So you definitely want to put on your sort of your best face and come in really, really prepared. And when it all works out, it's a beautiful thing. When you're on fire and she picks the right people and passes it along to the producers, then you put together a show like Hannah and everything works.
At what point did you realize that the show had made it? And when did you realize you were part of the show that would be etched into pop culture history forever?
I think the first time it hit home that we were actually shooting a TV show was on premiere night, when the first time it was actually on television. We had a big party on the soundstage and got to watch it as it premiered. And that was the first time we realized that we weren't just going and goofing off every week and there was no consequences. Like, the things that we actually shot were going to be out there and people were going to watch them. So that was the first time I realized it was a television show and not just like a one-act play we were doing every week. But one of the cool things that come with doing a show like this is you get the opportunity to do a lot of charity work. And I did a little event where we picked some kids up from school in a limousine, and they got to hang out with me for the day, and it was sort of their prize for winning this charity thing. And I was waiting in the limousine, and this girl got into the limo, and she was like, "Hey, my name is..." And she totally passed out. She was like that excited to like get a chance to meet me and hang out with me. And that was the moment that I realized that the show was a really big deal and people took it really seriously, and there were super fans out there, and it was a little scary but cool all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that my personal life is very similar now to before the show started. I think one of the most important things you can do if you ever get the chance to be on a successful show like Hannah Montana is to remember who you are and where you came from and who your friends were before your life sort of got turned upside down. And that will make sure that you always stay a regular person. You'll always stay whatever that good person was that led up to getting the part. And so, you know, sure, my life is a little bit different if I go to the mall or I go to, you know, I go to Chuck E. Cheese. Like, that's not the best place in the world for me to go to and hang out. But it's from a personal standpoint, I try to stay true to all the friends that I had beforehand, and everything else just sort of takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get into acting from a very early age because I come from a large family. There's 5 kids, and it was a struggle for everything. For food, last one to the stove, got the least amount of food. There was a big struggle for attention. I was the middle of 5, so that's like that classic forgotten child syndrome. And the thing that I noticed, I did my first play when I was in the 3rd grade, and everybody was in the audience. My mom, my dad, my brothers, my sister, and they were forced for 90 minutes to sit there and watch me, and it was awesome. They couldn't go anyplace. They were my captive audience, and from that point on, I knew that it was the one thing that I could do that I ended up being pretty good at, that set me apart from everyone else, and and sort of ensured that I got my fair share of attention. So that was sort of the spark that started it all.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I love about acting is you get a chance to say things and do things that you are totally inappropriate in real life. So whether that's the very first role I ever got was on The Shield, which is this really sort of harsh cop drama, and I played a skinhead, and I said some really awful, nasty, terrible things. And even though I don't believe any of those things personally, there was something sort of outrageous and cool about getting a chance to express those things. And then on our show, Jackson is not the smartest kid that you'll ever hang out with, but he's got a really good heart, and he's got all this crazy energy, and there's just something really exciting about being able to go every day, and you have no idea what sort of outrageousness is going to happen, but it's all just sort of organic, and it comes from this wild place inside me, and it usually works. So it's just, I think, getting a chance to express all these amazing different emotions and feelings, and I think it's the coolest part for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Miley makes an average day on the set interesting. Now, I think one of the great things about our show is it really is the casting. It's this sort of weird mixture of people that have enough similar interests, but enough diverse interests that we're always sort of either butting heads or exchanging ideas, or maybe we all think the same thing is funny, and it's just sort of watching this crazy mix of people hang out and work together every day. It keeps it very, very interesting for sure. Yeah, I was always the class clown. I was, voted class clown or most likely to be on Saturday Night Live. Excuse me. And but I was always sort of obnoxious about it like that. That's gross. I don't know why I did that. I apologize. But so in plays, my classic go-to move in plays is while the other performers are on stage doing their thing, I would always be in the wings mooning them. That with my pants showing the butt thing, and with the whole purpose of just trying to get them to break on stage. So I was always that guy, if that makes sense. So it actually leads really well into the Hannah Montana thing. It totally plays into my strengths. The show does a really great job of balancing very tight jokes that are really well written specifically for our characters, and then giving us a little bit of freedom to just sort of get crazy. And usually what we do is, like, maybe the third take when we're shooting, we call it our waste a pitch. Like in baseball, if you're ahead 2 strikes, no balls, you'll just throw one in the dirt. They call it wasting a pitch, hoping somebody will swing at it and strike themselves out. So if we already have the scene finished, they'll say, okay, this one's for you guys. And sometimes our very best material comes out of the take that is sort of our throwaway take. And the perfect example of that is there's an episode where my dad and I are playing pranks on each other, and he puts this picture over the door, and I run away from him and run through it, and on the other side is a pool of chocolate pudding. And I fall face first into 200 gallons of chocolate pudding. And the scene basically is supposed to end where I pop up in the door and I'm covered in pudding. But they kept the cameras rolling, and so I took a step towards Billy, and I was like, give me a hug. And he was like, oh, no, no. And I'm like, give me a hug. And then I start chasing him through the kitchen, and I slip and fall down because pudding is very slippery. And they left the entire sequence in the final scene. Everything coming through the door, the hugging, the ad-libbing, the slipping and falling. And it's one of the funniest things I think we've done in 3 years, and it was just totally an off-the-cuff moment. So there's a really good blend of the two.
You do a fantastic job at that.
Thank you.